Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Missy says, my autistic 11-year-old will shut down often when he has a sensory meltdown or is stressed. Sometimes he will not talk at all for hours. Is this something normal autistic kids do? And how can I help him? She says he will roll into a ball. Can I tell you, we used to say that my son would fold up like a lawn chair.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sending you love, Missy.
Yeah, Missy. So I guess, my initial reaction, I wish these are one of those situations where I wish I was face to face and could ask you a bunch of questions. My initial reaction is, can you help me understand a little bit more when you say what's a sensory meltdown or is stress? Because those could be the same thing, but they could also be very different things. So you could, a sensory meltdown, I see a lot of my kids, like when they have just way overwhelmed with lights or sounds or those types of things, like going to a birthday party, then I see them absolutely wanting to isolate and get away from that and calm down. Totally fine, totally acceptable, totally normal. In fact, if you think about it, it's the example I always use when, Shannon knows that I always try to experience the world from the person's perspective, from the autistic person's perspective, so I can understand it a little bit better. And I always say, and I see Missy's writing very loud noises, stresses like too many demands that he can't handle. Okay, those are two different things, so we'll talk about both of them. But my example when I say what it feels like to have autism is kind of like when I was in Hong Kong for the first time. I remember this so well because you enter a world that's quite different. The pollution level is definitely different than we are used to. It's much more congested. It's much more overpopulated. The sights and sounds are very different from we are used to in the United States, and it's a very loud, lots and lots of neon lights. You cannot really read anything or understand stuff that's going on around you. So it's a very foreign world you feel like you've been dropped into, and it's a very intrusive world where unless you're used to it, so what I did, and obviously when you get to Hong Kong, you're pretty jet lagged, right? Because it's a long distance from the US, and which is everything I just said is kind of like the daily experience of some of our kids, right? They don't sleep. They have signs, the sound, everything around them, lights and sounds are too intrusive. They don't really understand all the nuances of reading body language. Sometimes they don't understand language that's going on around them. In many cases, they can't find their way around. So you feel very out of control and you feel very just overwhelmed. And your reaction is what was my reaction. Go to my hotel room, shut all the curtains, and put no light on and just shut it down. Self-isolate and let your brain and everything calm down. So that's a very normal reaction and a very, I guess I would say, adaptive in some ways, because what you're doing is you're kind of giving your body the time to calm down, right? You're allowing. It's kind of like when we go and meditate. I mean, it's very similar to like meditation and deep breathing. So that is totally fine. Now, the other side though is stressed, and Missy defined for us, stress is like too many demands that he can't handle. That's a little different, and I'll tell you why. So, and forgive me because I'm going on minimal knowledge here. I don't know him very well, but you don't want your child to get into a habit of avoiding demands or escaping demands from the environment. Because, for example, when you're in class, and let's say the teacher is asking for a bunch of stuff, that's a lot of demand, and you don't want your child to get into the habit of thinking this is just too much for me, I'm going to leave, and I need to now leave. So to some extent, not the sensory stuff, because the sensory stuff is like very hard and not something we can help shape quickly. You're sensory sensitive, it's going to take a long, long, long time before your senses adapt to the input. But when it comes to adapting to demands, you kind of want to help the child shape that a little bit. And you want them to become a little bit more resilient, a little bit more like have a little bit more perseverance towards tolerating demands, because it'll strengthen their self-regulation, right? So it's kind of like, okay, and when I say self-regulation, this is what we all learn to do, some successfully and some not so successfully, but or some in an adaptive way and some not so adaptive. But what do we do? We get up in the morning, we work really hard all day, and then at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, we give ourselves a reinforcer, right? For some of us, it's just, I'm going to go take a shower or a bath or work out or whatever it is, which is adaptive. And for some people, it's like, give me a drink right now. I'm getting past, right? But somehow we regulate ourselves and we remind ourselves that this period of difficult, whatever demand it is, it's going to be followed by some sort of reward. And you want your children to learn that no matter what the demand is. So I know it might, you want to make sure that it's not too stressful, but you do want to help shape them to be able to receive some level of demand from their environment, respond to it, knowing that it's going to be rewarded. If that makes sense, Shannon.
Totally makes sense. I think the sensory thing, I had an epiphany the other day because I'm somebody who I describe myself as I get overwhelmed very easily. And when I was laughing because when you were talking about the adaptive ways to handle overwhelm, I was like, oh, those things aren't on my checklist, or at least not traditionally for my life. I'm somebody who, has a habit of eating my feelings. And if I have a feeling, it doesn't matter whether it's happy or sad. It's like, let's eat. Do you know what I mean? But it's interesting. Recently, I've started to notice and apply what I learned about watching my son go through this. So that we gave him a tool chest for when he was feeling too much to be able to ask for a break, but a break doesn't mean forever. Or that sometimes we would have him just do part of it, so that
Yes.
there was movement on it. And we would incorporate things like a breathing. Let's take a breath first, and then let's do a part of it, and let's make sure that there's a reinforcer for having done a part of it. And
I
as
love
an
it.
adult in my life, nobody taught me that for myself.
Yes.
Um, but I think that one of the amazing things about this is, I very much believe in the studies that say that the best way to teach something is the best way to learn something is to have to teach it.
That's
And
great.
for me as an adult, having gone through this with my son is now all these years ago, he did all this, but I'm still, the other day I was like, okay, wait a second, I have a toolkit because we taught him how to have a toolkit. And it
Yes.
is amazing how well it works. Instead of
Definitely.
completely avoiding,
Definitely.
I can take a break sometimes. And that means, that's as simple as getting up and using the restroom or taking a
Yep.
drink, or making a quick phone call, but not a 4-hour phone call, because I'm good at the avoiding thing. But so I just want to throw my 2 cents in there. I think we all get overwhelmed, and that the toolkit works for all of us. So, and what a
Definitely.
powerful thing for your kiddo.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's kind of the way you shape things, right? It's that you learn that, and this is how we teach almost everything. It's like if you want to teach a pile, it's going to be too much, so break it down, right? And it's the same thing with our own lives as well. I'm still pretty bad at that, I'll be honest, Shannon. Like, what I tend to do is I still will go until I like my limit. At least I've learned that I need to stop before I end up being in the hospital for exhaustion, which has
Mm,
happened twice in
mm.
my life. So But now at least what I do is I'm like, okay, I recognize these signs in myself where this is too much, it's too much. Let me just keep, and I'll go for like a week of that. And then I'll be like, okay, I need to get away from this completely. And then I will just put it away for a week. So it's like longer periods, but you're right. If we can get into the habit of exactly what you said, which is just shorter phases of things that we feel are overstimulating or demanding, like I said, make the environment fair, increase the
Yes.
reinforcer, reduce the demand. That's always the solution.
And I love that. I quote you on so many different things, but I think the most that often that I quote you is we have to make it fair. And
Yeah,
it's forced me to have to, oh, an earbud has fallen out. It's an emergency. Uh, this is going to happen a lot, but it's forced me to look at that. But not only can I just say, because we've been talking a lot about self-care this week, not only for our kiddos, we have to put ourselves in their shoes and say, we may not be able to understand exactly what's going on in their head, but just if we start from our own perspective and say, if I were them,
yeah,
would this be fair? That's a great place to start. It isn't. Now the other one has fallen out. Okay. It's a great place to start, to begin to understand and have empathy. But I think we need to do that for ourselves too. I
yeah,
was talking to a mom yesterday, and I said, I always say to moms, my goodness, you're doing such a good job. And this mom, like so many moms, was like, I'm really not. And I said, let's back this up a minute and look at what you're dealing with and what you're facing and what you've accomplished. You're doing great. You
yeah,
can't be Wonder Woman. Like,
yeah,
let's get real. And I heard that, and I know that I needed to hear that sometimes as a mom too. So making it fair
yeah.
is a big deal.
And I want to share something with you. Interesting that you bring up this whole concept of like moms taking care, or dads, parents
Yes,
of
yes.
kids with special needs taking care of themselves. Because for some strange reason, this uh, recently, just 2 nights ago, kind of came back to me that, and what came back to me was that I really would like to spend the rest of my life uh, in that arena, like really helping
Mm.
parents feel better about themselves and to just better care about them. And I'll tell you why. It's really interesting because Shannon, that I've always said, and I remember very specifically the particular moms who, and I was like, a student at UCLA, and I had somehow landed the job of taking charge of the autism clinic at UCLA, and I was just, I was a doctoral student, but it was a pretty like bigger than me job at that point, right? And I was like, okay, I need to take care of all these kids who were coming in at night. And it was a different era and a different age, but we had, clinics starting at 5, 6 p.m. and then going through until 9 p.m. But and I would run multiple clinics and take care of the kids. But it was the moms or the dads who just, touched my heart and made me want to really stay in this field and really want to do everything that I can for their children, because the type of person I am is that I will just try to fix it for you, right? So moms would
And we
come,
love that about you.
but I mean, moms would come and say, like, how do I, what, like, they would pour their whole heart out to me and tell me how torn they were in regards to the future, right? How do I reestablish a whole new life? How do I accept this? How do I move forward with all my goals having changed? All that. And my immediate reaction was, I'm going to fix your child. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to fix this for you, right? So my world went into, how do I help the kids? How do I help the kids? But the truth is, I am, before becoming a behavior analyst, I'm a psychologist. I'm a licensed psychologist. And now that I am kind of separate from CARD, and I have given up my role as CEO of CARD, and I am not doing that anymore. So therefore, I also don't necessarily have the resources of 5,000 behavior technicians. It's me now, right? And so for me, and I was thinking about this a few nights ago, what do I really want to do? And it is a joy for me to answer questions for parents here. But what I really want to do is also talk to parents about taking care of themselves and like valuing yourselves and learning how important it is for you to be okay, and that it will be okay. No matter what happens, it'll be okay, and that you will be okay. And and so it's kind of funny that it just came up on our show now, this subject.
Well, what's super fun about that is that I feel like that has been a big part of my last 10 years, is that I've wanted to talk to parents and say, look at all these people you can talk to. Look at this hope over here. Look at this inspiration over here. Look, that's been my last 10 years. And then I had the epiphany in June that I still want to be doing that. That's still really important to me, but I want to spend more time talking to the people who are doing the work with our kids. So it's like you and I are going like this, because there was that moment when my son walked across the stage to get his diploma, graduating with honors, and we only had 4 tickets because of COVID. And we invited you to come and you weren't able to come. So we had that ticket. And I think I told you we had Peter Farrig, his first therapist ever, come with us. Yes. And who just stood there and sobbed. Yes. And every time my son would do something, he would wave to a friend or shout out to a friend, or they were taking pictures, and he had this group of guys that they were taking and everybody was taking pictures of this group of guys that my son was in the middle, and Peter just weeping. And he said, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I was like, why are you so stunned and surprised? You're the person who showed me that this was possible. And he said, but I don't get to see it every day. Yeah. And I went, oh, we need to be showing these people to feed their bank, to remind them that. So it's okay. We have this well in hand, Dr. Granpeesheh. We got things to do and people to talk to. But I love that you're going to teach us about self-care, because I should never be in charge of self-care. I haven't figured it out yet.
Listen, and I hope what you said earlier is true, that the best way to learn something is by teaching it, because I got to learn about it too. But I do actually, now that I'm entering the world of social media, I've started to see some of these sites that are all about self-care, but also about I would like to believe that I'm a spiritual person. So in some ways, I really do want to, the more you connect with the universe and kind of feel like things are going in the right path, and you get a level of safety from the fact that everything will be okay. And that's kind of a lot of what I'm also learning, and hopefully we'll get the chance to share more with parents.
Yeah, and listen, we will happily sit at our feet. You clearly understand the self-care thing, and I know we can all be better, but I shared on Monday that my big goal right now is to moisturize. and then a friend of mine was like, I think you could aim higher. And I was like, no, you don't understand. That is Mount Everest for me. Moisturizing Mount Everest. But it does improve the quality of my life. So I'm putting some energy into that. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.